Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a little bit of a different project. We actually were working on the Corvette for the clutch replacement, but UPS literally just dropped off a box with a new part in it. You guys might be wondering what this part is. Well, as you guys know, we're going to be replacing the clutch. The LS7 clutch, which I've simply overpowered. We're going to be upgrading that to a McLeod RXT clutch, which is good for around 1,000 horsepower. Since I've got to tear this stuff all apart anyway, I decided to go ahead and order this, and let's get this thing open. Some of you guys probably already know what this is, some of you might not. So let's get top half open. Get that open. And as you guys might be able to read, there's a little thing in here from the Driveshaft shop. So you guys might be wondering why I ended up ordering a new Driveshaft. Well, I think my stock Driveshaft is fine. You know, the Corvettes typically don't break Driveshafts, but they do break parts inside the torque tube. And what other parts are inside the torque tube? The torque tube bushings that connect the Driveshaft to the input shaft and the output shaft, you know, going from the clutch and into the transmission. Now, they do sell replacement guibos, whatever you want to call them. Basically, the circular mount that it connects the drive shaft to each one of those ends, the output and input shaft, going the motor, going into the trans. And the stock replacements are garbage. You don't want to buy those. I believe they sell some polyurethane ones. Prothane might sell one. I believe those are roughly $120 a piece. Then I started looking into the billet ones. They're solid metal. Those were about $200 to $250 a piece, depending where you got them. Driveshaft shop sold them. RPM, clutch, and transmission, they sell them. And I believe there's a third company out there, and roughly in that $200+ range. So you're looking at $400 connect to the stock drive shaft. Or you could buy the aluminum drive shaft from the Driveshaft shop, and those are roughly $800 a piece. And then you could buy that two ways. You could buy the drive shaft and, you know, the stock style drive shaft that still uses the pucks, whatever you want to call it, the circular disc piece. Or you could order it without. I believe the drive shaft without was still $700, $800. Yeah, roughly that. And then the without was like $900. So you're approaching the $1,000 mark. And you're like, geez, you know, it's kind of a lot of money for a stupid drive shaft. And yeah. And then, if you spend a little bit more money, you just get a carbon fiber drive shaft. So here's what we did, guys. We ended up with the carbon fiber drive shaft from the Driveshaft shop. As you guys can see, it has the billet end pieces on it, so this will connect directly into the, basically, input shaft going into the motor, and then this back end will connect right into the output shaft going into the transmission, and it'll bolt right to it. This will go inside the torque tube, and yeah. Now, I will say this, I did not order this directly from the Driveshaft shop. I found the best price online, and it beat their price by like $300. Was that price below the MAP, you know, the manufacturer's advertising price? Probably, but you know, you can find a deal out there. So for about $1,200, give or take, I end up with this carbon fiber drive shaft. Now, why did I end up going this route? Like I was saying, you know, you're gonna spend $1,000 on a aluminum drive shaft, another $400, $200 to $400 on the mounts, you know, the circular pucks, the disc, whatever you want to call it, that bolt the drive shaft to the input and output shaft. I did think about buying a used drive shaft off eBay. I saw one for about 500 bucks. I thought about getting those billet end pieces like I was telling you about, those mounts. That was gonna be another $400. So I mean, you're $900 to $1,100 doing that. So that was the deciding factor, just to order brand new. Plus, buying a used drive shaft, guys, you don't know what that was on. It could have been a stock Z06. It could have been on a 2,000 horsepower dragster. You know, hard to say. So to save not much money, but to save a little bit of weight, we've gone with a carbon fiber drive shaft. Now, I know some of you guys might be concerned with these things splitting apart. I share that same concern on street-driven cars with a exposed drive shaft. But with this thing being inside the torque tube, there's absolutely no way a rock or road debris can hit this drive shaft and cause this thing to explode. Now, I'm not saying like if you were in a Leroy, for example, with Cletus in his car with 1,500 horsepower and 40 pounds of boost, that he wouldn't be able to break one of these. I'm not saying that. I think you could still do that, but with the factory, you know, with this being fully encased and enclosed, I think we're going to be safe. So, as part of this project to get the clutch in the car, we're going to be tearing the torque tube out of the car anyway to get to the clutch. We're throwing this in there as well. And I actually know I have a problem because when I'm in gear and I let off the clutch, I can hear a really bad vibration noise coming from the center of the car. And it's not the transmission. Like, I put the transmission in neutral, put it in the gear, and just spin the rear wheels. No noise coming from there. It's coming from the torque tube. So what I'm fully expecting to find is when we get this thing torn apart, we're going to find one of those stock Pox disc built, you know, that circular piece I was telling you. I'm fully expecting that to be worn out and destroyed. So, and if you guys don't fix that within a reasonable amount of time, you can actually drill a hole through the torque tube, ruining the torque tube, because what will happen is the drive shaft will get out of alignment, and that circular piece, that rubber piece, will actually grind a hole from the inside out on the inside of the torque tube. So I know we're going to find something, some carnage in there, but I'm just not sure what it'll be. So let's go ahead and get this project started, and we'll get to installing this when we get the torque tube out of the car, and we'll get this put in. Since it's out, it's finally time to get that drive shaft put into this thing. You guys will see that I have the torque tube, and it may look kind of funny. It's because I've already gone ahead and removed the giant C-clip. You'll see it right here. This C-clip is 5 or 6 inches in diameter, and you guys are gonna laugh at the tool that I had to buy. Look at this pair of snap ring pliers. This thing's the size of my arm. And I actually bought a dual set, so internal and external squeezing operation. And you'll get this set, and you're gonna need that set. I tried to use like my standard size snap ring pliers. Wouldn't even come close, because like that snap ring, I think the diameter of the 2 holes is like 3 inches or something like that. It's ridiculous. So I started looking on Amazon and found that set. That set was 30 bucks shipped. So I'll have a link down in the description below for that set, because you're gonna need this on the install and removal of the drive shaft. So we use that giant pair of snap ring pliers over there to remove this gigantic C-clip over here. And that C-clip is actually on the transmission side of the bell housing. I've already taken it out. You actually need to hit it from the engine side down. So what I did was I took a wood block, my little mallet, and put it on the end here, covered up, hit it 2 times, and the thing popped out and slid down. So if we move this, you guys can see the drive shaft is ready to come out. These apart with my Milwaukee impact and a T50 torque bit on the star bit on the end of it. I'll have a video link in the description above to this impact, and guys, this really saved my bacon. I tried using hand tools to get these couplers apart, and you'll see, just look at the amount of blue Loctite on that. That's insane. So every one of these bolts had that Loctite on it. So finally got that apart. I will say this, I did destroy a very cheap T50 socket. Not that the one that I just showed you was any better, but be aware you may destroy a socket or two. And that's all right. Oh, and I had it on like the impact, like the hammering setting on the impact, and that's what actually snapped that T50 socket. So I put it on 3. Yeah, you guys can see it glowing. It's on 3 right now. Put it on 3, and that's what got the bolts loose. This shouldn't be too hard. We should just be able to slide this over. You might have to tap it on. Nope, slid right in. New hardware. They're just these Allen head bolts. I really hope that I have a socket this size. That really suck. So these are grade 12.9. Damn. You know, most cars are grade 8, so this should. So like I was showing, the rear end male piece slides into the female piece of the rear part of the drive shaft. Pull the bolts in, put blue Loctite on it, torque them down, and get this thing installed. Alright guys, as you can see, we got the front input shaft put in. We put the back input shaft in. We used the hardware provided by Driveshaft shop, and we torqued it down to 66 foot-pounds. The automatics use like 52 or something like that. Manual trans are 66. Now, alright guys, we got the torque tube back together. Just had to find the right angle of elevating the back end and the front end. Push the back end as far in as I could, and finally I was able to grab the front and shimmy it in there. Now this is that ridiculous snap ring that I was telling you about, and this has to go back in, and this is that ridiculous pair of pliers that I was telling you about. Maybe we'll go to that seat back again. And quite simply, just get your clamps wide enough to hold the clamp, and you press in on it like here. Kind of do one ring at a time. That's all the way tight, and we do have probably another 1/4 inch of squeezing it, and just in case it needs to be any bigger, you simply slide it back in. Alright, there we go. Alright guys, as you can see, the C-clip is already back in. We put the 3 little plastic covers back on, and we should be good to go. So that's pretty much gonna be it for the torque tube install. I hope I gave you guys enough information. I mean, it's really not that hard. Take out that snap ring in the back, hit the front with a board on the input shaft. Just tap it very lightly. Tap that backward. That'll pop the drive shaft out this end, coming toward you. Hit it a couple more times. You'll eventually pull the whole thing out. Take the bolts out. Since we're not using the couplers, you only need to take the backs out. So basically the parts that attach to the output and input shaft. Take those out. Tighten those down to the new hardware to 66 foot-pounds, and then put the drive shaft back in, snap ring back in. On that, guys, I mean, that's pretty much going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope I gave you enough details. Shouldn't be too hard. And if you guys like the video, give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. Also, if you want to know when I upload new content, hit that bell notification down below. And also, we also have new merchandise for sale, and it's all in the links down below. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.